5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, Southwest Florida. Where in Southwest Florida is Lee Pitts Live tonight? Well, we are at the hottest ticket in town. We are at the main event, the Cream de la Cream. We're at the NAACP of Lee County branch's annual Freedom Fund banquet. This is 2006, and I have the distinct pleasure of having Lee Pitts Live here, Johnny on the spot. The entire compliments, the entire set we brought out for its importance. Special shout out to my good friend, Brother James Milwaukee. He's the president of the Lee County chapter of the NAACP. And what we're going to have here tonight is just going to be spectacular. We're going to talk to a lot of the movers and shakers who are here. We're in the reception area, and I have the pleasure of having the keynote speaker for tonight's event, Jim Nathan, the CEO and president of Lee Memorial Health System, which is now Lee Health. So, Jim, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Did I get that right, Lee Health?
You got it. You got it. Yeah, we have a more efficient name. We cut it in half.
I'm sure a whole lot of smart people got in the back room. So what we will have now, let's work on that before we get started. We will have on all of the buildings, all of the hospitals now will be Lee Health, or it'll be Children's Hospital Lee Health.
Well, we use Lee Health as the system name,
okay,
but the names of the buildings haven't changed.
Okay.
So Lee Memorial Hospital is still Lee Memorial Hospital. Golisano Children's Hospital is still Golisano Children's Hospital. But it's all linked together under the name Lee Health.
Give us the logic behind Lee Health.
So healthcare today, we've learned after a lot of hard work that repair center medicine won't get us where we need to be. We all have to live healthier lifestyles. And it's not just healthcare organizations, it's our entire communities that need to live healthier. So we're trying to show both internally to our employees that we need to organize together to improve our health and also the health of our community, and to partner with people in the community to improve health. So we thought it just was a simple story, Lee Health. It wasn't named after you, Lee, I'm sorry, but...
but you know, I get that a lot, you know, being in Lee County.
Yeah, of course.
If I ever ran for political office, it
That's
really
it.
even Lee for Lee County. Hey, that's, okay, I follow that concept. Now let's get to why you are here. You are here tonight, and you are not a stranger to NAACP banquets anyway, or anything in the community, particularly as it relates to diversity. I was so thrilled when I saw that you were going to be the keynote speaker at tonight's event. What was that like? How did the process happen where you were selected as the keynote speaker? Take us behind the scenes.
Well, I've done this before a number of years ago, but I've been at many of these through the years. And Brother James called me and asked me if I'd do it, and I said, okay. So I was going to be here anyway, so why not?
I think it was a perfect, and one of the great things that when the word got out that Jim Nathan was going to be the keynote speaker, tickets just sold immediate, man, like you were a rock star. A lot of people in this community, Jim, let me say this, you're not going to say it, you don't need to say it. People have a lot of respect for you in our community. You are, even in the hood, in the neighborhood, when we're talking amongst ourselves and people bring up your name, it always ends with, yeah, Jim Nathan, he's cool. Now, whether you realize it or not, in the neighborhood, you probably do realize it because I know your background. When we say Jim Nathan is cool, for you to be in that type of position that you are in, that means that people see you as humble, people see you as approachable, and people see you as somebody that we can always call on. What in your background prepared you at this state in your life that this seems to be natural for you?
Well, I've had a little adversity in my life and challenges that have gone on, and I think I learned at a young age that we're all just people, and to trust and respect each other. A story my wife said, don't tell it in your speech tonight, but you've heard it before, but I think was really significantly shaping for me was in 1967 when there were riots in Cincinnati after Martin Luther King had been in town, and the business where I was working that summer was not destroyed. All the other businesses around it were basically destroyed. And I went a few months later to Vern from Vern's Body Shop, and I asked Vern if there was anything he could tell me about. And he said, well, Mr. Ray treats us like human beings. Mr. Ray was the owner of that business. That was my dad.
Wow.
And just I still always get choked up when I tell the story because I think it was truly formative for me, although it was, wasn't something that just happened that day, but something that was always built into me to respect other people. We all have our challenges, we all have our differences, but we have to work together to be able to be successful.
Very simple, very fundamental, and it stayed with you throughout life. The Lee County branch of the NAACP's galas always draws a wide range, culturally diverse group of people, beautiful event, a mosaic of what's good about Lee County. When you look out into that audience and you see all of that diversity that assembles here right in the heart of the inner city, what goes through your mind?
Well, what goes through my mind is that we know we have tensions, we know we have things that we don't do well, but it also reminds me that we are all just people, and that if we care about each other, if we work together, we can make great things happen. In my comments tonight, I'm going to try to show some of the things that we've done through Lee Health to reach out and partner with the community, and we couldn't have done it without partnerships. We can't do it by ourselves. And my words of encouragement are, it's not just about the health of our community, but the overall success of our community is finding ways to trust each other, to improve that whole dignity and respect. And I've been down that path. I was heavily involved with Lee County Pulling Together. I was heavily involved with 21st Century Dunbar. And I've seen these efforts come and go. And ultimately, they break apart by lack of trust, by the challenge du jour, the shootings, killings, the finger pointing that occurs from all of those things. But ultimately, if we're ever going to be successful at this, it's going to have to come because we trust and respect each other and we treat each other with dignity.
Excellent. When you, some of those things that I just heard you say, is it fair for me to say, not to spoil it, that you may touch on some of those in your speech?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The NAACP, civil rights organizations in general, do you recall when you first, as growing up, when you first started hearing about civil rights organizations, civil rights movement, and how you went about learning of that process and decide where you wanted to fit in that whole process?
So I didn't know, as I look back, I realized the naivete that I had, but I also know that there were certain things. One of the stories I told you earlier today that I would tell you tonight that you haven't heard before. Okay. And I have it in my speach, but I'll tell you now.
You can tell me now because this is not
right. I know this will show up
scoop,
later.
Scoop.
So scoop, but it relates to swimming. Now you were a star swimmer. I wasn't a star swimmer.
You were a runner though. But, I know you ran later.
But as a child, I went to a public swimming pool in Cincinnati, and it was integrated at the time. But I remember that they didn't have filter systems in the pool, so they pour a lot of chlorine in those pools. Yes, pour a lot of chlorine. And then there was break time while the chlorine was sort of setting in there, and so they had us get out of the pool and take a break. But then they had the black children get in the pool first, and they had to walk in a circle to churn and basically stir it up.
Wow.
Now, this is in Cincinnati.
And this is common practice.
This was, well, I can only talk about this pool.
Right.
But I remember that there was a time where some of us thought, this doesn't make any sense. I was in like 6th grade. And we jumped in the pool with the other kids, and we just walked around too. We figured if it wasn't hurting them, it wasn't going to hurt us.
Oh, my goodness.
So I look back on that,
story.
and I don't think that any of us thought that we were rebel-rousing or that this was some kind of an act of anything other than it just made no sense why our friends were in the pool and we weren't allowed to be in the pool. So if they were going to walk and turn it around, why don't we get in and turn it around?
Boy, I tell you, and those little things like that, those little nuggets along the way shape who you became. And I'm sure that's a part of why we love you so much in the community, not just in the minority community, but you are really admired throughout the whole state of Florida and maybe even at the international level. How would you tie in with you being a person from some key points that you would make as it relates to our health and your presentation tonight?
Well, I don't really touch so much on the diversity issues of health, but I do know that there's a lot of research around where there are the major challenges. We know that there's high incidence of diabetes within the African American population. What we have to get better at as a community is really understanding where those pockets are, and I will talk about some of the outreach programs that we're doing through Lee Health that aren't in the hospitals, that aren't in outpatient centers, but they really need to go on in the homes through education. We talk every year. We help with the Dunbar Health Fair and many other health fairs because they're so important. And when I go, one of the things I love to do is just to see the eyes of the people that are there, that are accessing knowledge and information about their own bodies and those of their family, and to see that they're getting information that they've been fearful about in some ways, or they were afraid to go to an emergency room or to ask somebody, but it's a safe environment for them. So we have to do more of that.
Now, here are the key things I know, particularly in the community that I know that are like flagship, really popular. There's a health type event that you always put on in conjunction with Mount Hermon Church.
Right.
And then there's the partnership with the Omega Psi Phi fraternity
Right.
that usually takes place at Dunbar High School.
Sure.
Those are two complete separate types of things. Can you elaborate on them?
Well,
I know it's usually like a celebrity of some sort usually comes to Mount Hermon. Dominique Wilkins this last time.
Right. They're very similar, but they reach different populations, and some people may come to both, and others just go to one or the other as to how they hear about it. But it's never enough. But the excitement that goes on throughout the day, and the people whose lives are being touched, people with a fear that maybe they've got some problem and it turns out they don't, but they've been living with it every day, or a concern that they may have that is actually a real one, but we can now try to help them and to address it. So that goes on. But there's a lot more. As you know, the Dunbar Health Center was actually shut down for a short period of time, and we were subleasing that facility. And
King.
Right, and I'll tell the story tonight, but I was out running one morning with Cliff Smith from United Way, and we came up with
Cliff
this
still can run?
Yeah.
Tell Cliff I joked him about that. Tall Cliff, United Way.
Yeah, I gotta run actually
basketball
hard
together.
to keep up with him
Cliff?
because I have to do 2 steps for every one of his.
I always get this in, Jim. Let me get this
Yeah.
in. I know Cliff will see this. Cliff, I'm letting everybody know I used to dunk on you at the YMCA back in the 90s when we used to play basketball on lunch break.
And he's still playing basketball.
He really is?
He really
Okay.
is. Yeah.
Nicest guy you ever want to meet.
He sure is. So one morning we're having a conversation, and he wanted the space to put in some social service agencies, and I'd been talking to the mayor, and he wanted to make sure there was still a clinic there. So I said, well, maybe we can figure out how to do it together.
Okay.
Well, as a result, he brought the concept of the United Way houses with social service agencies to that clinic. We brought the concept of a medical clinic. We do it together, and now we operate 3 of those. We've got a 4th one going up, and we now actually have a name for them, all of them, Lee Community Healthcare. And we have community community individuals that volunteer their time to serve as the board. So it's not just a Lee Health program, it's a communities program, and they oversee these clinics. And it's been a wonderful thing. We won't open one without doing it in partnership with social service agencies because the cross referrals are so significant. If people have health problems, and they're underserved by insurance, et cetera, they also have probably a lot of social problems, and vice versa. If they have social problems, they may have some health problems. It's a great partnership.
So let's get that name again.
Lee Community Healthcare.
So when we see a Lee Community Healthcare sign,
Yep.
we should know that in that particular building, what takes place?
There's Health and Human Services along with medical services. And they've just been wonderful programs. We have one in Dunbar, one in North Fort Myers, one in Cape Coral, and now we're going to operate one in Lehigh.
I would be remiss as we come to the close of this particular conversation. We always have conversation. Yamisi Olarentola Coates, Director of Diversity and Cultural Services and English and Language Services at Lee Health. Is she here tonight?
She'll be here tonight.
Okay.
She's a wonderful lady who's done a great service both internally and externally. And I have some references to her in my comments too.
Okay. That particular department within your hospital, is that pretty common for hospitals of your size throughout the United States?
I think more and more are doing that. And there's some elements that are really required of diversity, especially languages. But she's done such a great job. There are people all across the country studying what we're doing right here in River City.
Okay, and I have a surprise for her tonight. Don't tell her, but just say Lee said he's got a surprise for you.
All right,
well, Jim,
wonderful.
it's a pleasure to
Thank
have
you,
you
sir.
here. I
All
know
right.
a lot of people here want to talk to the keynote speaker has stopped by here at the Lee Pitts Live set. We had the first exclusive with him, and there'll be more interviews to come. That's Jim Nathan, the CEO of Lee Health, formerly known as Lee Memorial Health System. We'll be right back on Lee Pitts Live at the NAACP banquet in Lee County.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, man. Is that Jane Carpenter? What's her name? That's school board, right? Sheik, I want you to go and get for your first interview. For your first interview, I want you to get Roar Potts. Roar Potts. Cabaret. Slowing me up, Jim Nathan. Slowing me up. I gotta get this interview. You good? You ready, John? 5 minutes, right?